Road Podcast. We are back again, man. When people see this, it actually be the month of July.
Yeah.
We're here at the end of the month, June now, man. Brian Chandler here, one of the lead guys on the Road Podcast. Close and always good friend, co-host of Corbin Perry here with us. And we got our good friend, a guy who actually just left the office because it wasn't up to his par. Good friend Chris Smith, wealth advisor with Eagle Strategies. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So welcome to On the Road Podcast, man. You was telling us this was your first podcast you ever been a part of, correct?
Yep, first podcast, first time on video on the internet.
How you feeling? Are you nervous?
Very.
Yeah.
I can feel all the faces on me, or all the eyes on me right now.
Yeah, we have a huge audience.
Chris is a funny guy, man.
Yeah.
Chris is a funny guy. Chris, the thing I want to share with the viewers, I told, well, we always talk about this in the office, and I also told the night leads when we was part of the group, and I know you kind of shaved your beard down now, but they always called us twins because we both bald-headed with beards in the office. So
Otherwise, not even still, we look just alike. Just,
Pretty
you guys have less of a beard.
Exactly the same, yeah.
yes, sir. But share with the people, man, exactly, Chris, what do you do, and you're more so into your services?
Yeah. So the short version is I help people leverage money so that it can serve them instead of them serving it.
Cool.
Can you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I help people leverage money so that it can serve them
Yes,
instead
sir.
of them serving it.
And how exactly do you do that?
Well, you know, the answer to that is always kind of annoying because it depends, right? It depends on the person, it depends on the financial situation, depends on their goals, and so there's a few ways I do that. We do it through financial products,
Yes,
like using life insurance as a vehicle for asset growth, using every other investment vehicle out there. I have
Yes, sir.
access to everything. So whether it's managed accounts or just mutual funds or systematic investing, whatever you need, I can manage investments. The biggest area that I shine and where I actually help people leverage that
Yes,
their
sir.
assets is in the planning. Strategy is so important. Anybody that can get a license can sell you a mutual fund, can sell you a life insurance policy, any of that stuff.
Yes, sir.
It's in the planning. I've been doing this. It'll be 10 years probably by the time this podcast is out, it'll be in 10 years, July 12th.
Oh, congratulations, man. Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. And in those 10 years, what I've come across is people with oodles of money that just need to figure out the best way to keep it and make sure it stays in their
Yes, sir.
generational wealth. And all the way down to people just starting out, putting $25-50 a month in and building up wealth. Well, one of my first clients started out with me putting $100 a month into a Roth IRA, just a retirement account, and shortly after came in, cashed the whole account out, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm putting a down payment on a garbage truck." That was 10 years ago. Almost.
Yes, sir.
It was like October of 2012. And today, he's got a waste management business that's worth about $14 million. He's my
Are you
age.
serious?
Yeah, he's my age, and he is worth.
Wow.
I mean, the dude, and so I got to guide him throughout that whole process.
Yes, sir.
He and I grew together,
That's cool.
and so that's kind of that's where I love to play is with in that entrepreneurial world, right? Business owners or people just starting out that want to grow into something big and leverage their wealth. So. Like I said, there's so many different vehicles, it would take an hour just to go through all of them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's a
sir.
nice, we've kind of done that, kind of grown together sort of thing. That is the nicest part of working with people sometimes on an individual level. That's why I didn't care for real estate that much to some degree too.
Transactional.
Yeah, it's real quick and just kind of,
Yeah.
you can help people. You can definitely help people in real estate, but it's a little faster and you can definitely have repeat clients. You can help people throughout their life, but it's just a little different.
Well, I think in any kind of sales environment, right, you can have an impact on, you can have as big of an impact as you're willing to.
For better or
Agreed.
worse.
Yeah, for better or for
that's
worse,
very
exactly.
true. That's very true.
Real estate, you can be transactional, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You're selling houses, your clients are happy, you're happy, everybody walks away, the sellers are happy, or the buyers, whatever. But you can take another step or two forward and really get engaged with education and become an authority. And so in any case, you can make whatever you're
That's
doing
very true.
a bigger thing than just transactional, right?
That's
So,
very true.
so yeah, and that's what I do. And it's very relationship based in my industry, so there is no
I
transaction.
think interest plays a big role in that too. Like, are you pretty interested in finance and stuff like that, like just money in general?
That's just a hobby. yeah. I'm interested in it to the extent that it is a tool that we can use to do amazing things, right?
Yes, sir.
Money is such a misunderstood thing in our society, like by literally almost everybody on the planet, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And it's because it became this thing. We created money. Currency didn't exist before people, but
True. Right.
we
We're
created
trading,
this.
like fish and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even that was currency, right?
Right,
So
right.
we created this thing that suddenly became what we attach our entire worth
Store of
and
value.
value.
Yeah.
And so, like,
Sure.
if I have my money, it's my money, not yours,
Yeah.
and I'll guard it with my life, right?
Yeah.
So my goal is just to make people understand. Maybe it's one person at a time, maybe it's 1,000 at a time. It just depends on my audience, but help them understand that it's a tool. It's not what runs their life. Having more money than somebody else does not make you worth more than that person.
Agreed.
Very true. Yeah.
Went on a little ramble there, but yeah.
No.
You're fine, man. I like the word that you used earlier when you talked about strategies and you talked about planning. And then when you had, you talked about how we met each other and was really able to help and grow and build this company out, and all of that is really based on the same exact thing.
We do a lot.
All of us being entrepreneurs, all of us being our own bosses, and all of us having that level to where we have to hold ourselves accountable because we are us. You know what I'm saying? In this business and different things like that. And it's like if you don't plan, you pretty much like planning to fail in this business. And I want to say that's like the difference between an entrepreneur who business lasts for 20 plus or more years compared to that entrepreneur that's only business lasts for a few years. It's like once they hit a wall, they can't come up with a different strategy or different plans, you know what I'm saying, to continue making things work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Or they just sit at a certain level. A lot of
Agreed.
business. I feel like a lot of business owners I know, like get 3, 4, 5 years in, and they just kind of stay at that stage forever because it is hard to really lift off. I think from that point when you start adding people and everything, especially, and it's tough. It's tough to scale business.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with mindset, and not every business owner is an entrepreneur,
That's true.
right? So there are plenty of business owners that are like second, third, fourth generation. Kind of just inherited a business. They don't have an entrepreneurial spirit. They might, right? But often they don't, and so that's where you see family businesses run into the ground. That's where you see
sadly.
the guy or gal who started a business out of a passion, but didn't have the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
yes, sir.
And that's why they plateau.
Yeah.
It's those that see the business that they're creating as another tool, another way to express their energy, their whatever they're giving to the world. And then if that business fails, it's not a failure.
Yes, sir.
They didn't fail, the business did. That's fine. We move on to the next.
Yeah.
I've owned 3 businesses. One of them was 3 pizza stores. 2 of the stores failed. Let me rephrase that. They became a sucking chest wound, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so we cut them out, and then we sold the 3rd one. I looked at that as a failure when it first happened.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
And now I look back on it as
Maybe the success was in knowing when to get out of it and sell them and everything. Like it's just a matter of framing it in some
yeah.
sense.
The success was what I learned from it. I learned how to operate a business. I learned how to take my punches, right?
Yeah.
And there are so many people that start a business because they either feel like they have to, and then they just hit a wall and they don't go through it.
Mhm.
Then there are those that do it because they have a calling, like you. Have a calling for what you do.
Seems
so
like it.
whatever the entire inspection business could go under, and like everything, and just that industry is gone, and you're going to find another spot to succeed. So that I don't know where we were going with that, but that's the kind of entrepreneurial spirit I appreciate. That's the kind of client. I think you asked me my ideal client. That's the person right there. Somebody that I don't care what you build something that's perfect for you, and I want to be your guy that helps you.
Sometimes people only seem to do businesses too, just because they don't really want to have a job or work for.
They want to buy
someone
themselves
else.
a job.
Yeah, which is totally reasonable because most people will, if they're good at what they do, make more probably on average, or more in less time, or more with more time. Doing something, especially a trade or something like that, if they can do it on their own. So
If you've got, like, imagine a Walmart cashier or whatever, Meijer cashier, and Sam Walton or whoever the Walton is that runs the show now comes in and says, the store is now yours. And they're going to run into the ground because they're just a cashier and they got that cashier mentality. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they don't know what they're doing. They don't have the spirit, not the passion. You hand that business over to somebody who's got that fire.
Yeah.
I hand you Walmart, you're going to take it and grow.
Figure it out.
I would hope so.
I would never.
Corbin might cash it out and just live on a beach for the rest of his life on a private island.
Probably.
But
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm just kidding.
Not anything. Sold.
But like that's just the it's all just about energy and passion and flow with that sort of thing. So
that's true.
How is there a difference between failure and then learning from your mistakes? You mentioned that earlier. I don't know if those things, obviously I think they play hand to hand, but are those things the same? Just to kind of hear from you guys' perspective.
No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Making mistakes is part of growth. You cannot grow without a mistake. Just like in the stock market,
Yes, sir.
you cannot grow until there's a downturn, right?
Agreed.
You cannot grow as a person without making mistakes. The only point of failure is if you decide not to continue. If you decide that the failure is too big, you can't make it past it, the mistake was too large, that's a failure.
That constitutes a failure.
Yeah, because anything
That's
up
true.
until that point is just a learning experience.
Okay.
And now, if you like I said, if you stop at that mistake and call it a failure, then yeah, that's a failure for sure.
I would agree with that framing. Yeah, that seems pretty. Yeah, because a failure implies it's done. It's pretty much over, sort of thing. But if you screw something up and keep moving, you didn't necessarily fail. You just made a mistake along the way.
Yeah.
The way to success, hopefully.
Yeah,
Failure is giving up or making a mistake, not learning anything from it, and then moving on.
And blaming other people for it.
That's failing for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And there are millions of people in this country, in this world, and probably billions in this world that fail and constantly, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to reframe that, fail forward, right? And make a mistake.
Yeah.
Fall forward into the next step and figure it out. So,
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
It's a
sir.
good thing and I feel like I do that. Some people I feel like have a lot of hesitancy just making decisions because they're afraid of failing because they don't necessarily think about it that way. So they just get held up in trying to make decisions. I'm more of a risk taker in that I would just rather make the mistake and then face the consequences just to move things forward
Yes, sir.
and knowing that I'm going to learn from it
Yeah.
and just everything's going to be fine. Just move on from it. It's not that I go out of my way to try and brute force things just to make mistakes and just whirlwind through
I can't
stuff,
wait to fail.
Yeah, nobody needs a guy like that around, but at the same time, when everybody's kind of just standing there looking at something and everybody's afraid to do anything because nobody wants to do something wrong with it, it's like, well, we can't do anything if we're all just sitting here.
Agreed.
So let's just do what we're gonna do and make the best, risk analysis we can, and then we'll take the consequences if something happens. Just move on. Like I've gotten better at that as I've gotten older, and I kind of notice certain people have a hard time with that sort of thing. I think it's.
Oh yeah.
And we all struggle with it. Making mistakes still
Yes,
sucks, but at a certain point, you just got to think about whether it's really that big of a deal or not. Especially if you're not disappointing other people along the way.
Well, and even if you are, right? Like the only point where it becomes a problem is if you don't, like I said, just keep moving forward.
Yeah, inaction is a failure in some sense. To not.
Oh, absolutely. And so many people are paralyzed by fear, and because I mentioned money being such a part of people's lives and ingrained in society so much. We put so much value on a dollar that it becomes this thing that we'll protect as much as we can,
Yes, sir.
and a risk of that involves money, right? You would think you're risking your life by making a business decision, right? And so people sit there paralyzed, paralyzed with fear.
Yeah.
There's a really good book by Kyle Cease. He's a former comedian. He was an actor. He's
I was
in
gonna say.
10 Things I Hate About You, 20 years ago or whatever.
Kyle.
I can't bring a face to that name.
I wouldn't have known his face, but I knew the name.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, he wrote a book called I Hope I Screw This Up. And he's got a second book, The Illusion of Money. The first book is a short read. I recommend it to anybody that is in any kind of decision making. It's called I Hope I Screw This Up.
I hope I screw this up.
It's on Audible. You put on 1 1/4 speed. It's you're done in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Who you talking about, bro?
I'm familiar with. I just can't believe. I just can't even imagine him.
I don't know if I know him.
I don't know where I know him from, but I'm very.
Well, you gotta look him.
It's
You
been
gotta
a
look
while
up like.
since I've seen like his stand up or anything. Maybe he hasn't done one in a while.
No,
maybe
he
has.
quit that like 10 years ago. Or
That
something
makes
like
sense.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. That's his weirder, blacker, dimpler, uncensored. That was his comedy. So it's been about 10 years or so since I've even seen or heard from him.
And
what was the
like,
name of the book?
I Hope I Screw This Up.
I hope I screwed
And
this
then
up.
the other one is The Illusion of Money. Why chasing it, or I forget the rest of it.
I'm floored right now that he's written books like that. That's so funny to me.
Not only has he written a book, it's
They're good.
probably one of the best books I've ever read. The way he writes, his voice in there is amazing. And I'm telling you right now, read those 2 books.
He's a great comedian. He's a really talented comedian.
And he's
I can
funny
see
in his
that.
book too.
Yeah.
The Audible, because he narrates his own book.
No way.
Yeah, and that makes it even better.
Oh my God.
He's a comedian.
Watch some stand up from him because I feel like you would enjoy that. I'm just having a blast from the past right now.
Well,
That's crazy.
his books. I'll be honest. I never heard his stand up. Never once.
Dude,
I didn't realize who he
hilarious.
was until I read.
Yeah, we're having like a reverse thing right now.
Yeah.
I'm just mind blown that he's.
Yeah, it got recommended to me, and I just finished the
sure.
second book, and I read the other one a couple weeks ago. The funniest thing. Okay, if you go to do Audible for that first book, you got to get through the intro because he reads it in a weird voice the whole time. But anyway, enough on that. That's where a lot of this comes from. So, it's part of where it comes from. But my my thought process back to what we were talking about, failure, and entrepreneurialism. Can't speak. It's just 100% about mindset. Whatever is in your way, if you see it as a just an obstacle instead of a barrier, you'll get through it. So.
I think what I hear is something that we may be able to agree or disagree on, that it's okay to take 3 or 5 steps back if that 3 or 5 is going to get you 15 steps ahead compared to not taking any steps and then just being there, like you said, kind of really either scared to fail, scared to do something other than what they're doing. It may equal to change, it may be a few different things, but that's kind of what I heard. At least kind of, from you guys' perspective.
Yeah. The only part of that I would not disagree with, but twist a little bit, is if you're looking at it as taking 3 to 5 steps back, you're not. Because there are 2 paths ahead of me. One
still
is
average forward, I guess. Yeah.
Well, sure, but even that, like, there are 2. If I'm at a fork in the road, and the one path is what I know, right? It's security, that false sense of security that we all have. Because whatever that security is, it's what we know. Most people are miserable in their security.
Agreed.
Right? The other path is unknown, has amazing potential, potentially limitless, right?
Yeah.
And so, to look at that as having to take a step back to go on that path, it's the wrong idea. And it's just about a mindset thing. It's not like you're wrong.
Agreed.
But like if you look at it as, I hope I screw this up by going on this path, right? Again, back to that book. There's nothing that can stop you. Once you've made the decision, like truly made the decision, everything will open up for you. And so yeah, that's the only part of that I would like tweak a little bit. Is it's not a step back. It's always a leap forward. And
yeah.
But otherwise, it's 100%.
Makes sense. So with you being a wealth advisor, Chris, and like I said, me being a home inspector, obviously dealing with a lot of people who are buying and selling homes, different things like that. So this will be specific for people who already own homes. Is there any specific tools or resources they should be able to use in regards to investing or saving? Because I know when you typically have a property, there's always some form of benefits from it. So what may be the benefits in regards to dealing with investing or saving when you have a property?
Yeah. So the first one I would say is, especially right now with equity being through the roof, what is it? $22 trillion is in the U.S. home equity market right now. So I just read this.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it's $22 trillion right now sitting in equity in homes. So the mortgage balances versus the total home values of the whole U.S. $22 trillion. So what that looks like to me is an opportunity, right? So
Yes, sir.
personally, my home, I bought it in October of 18, and in that 3.5 years that I've lived there, it grew in equity by $140,000.
That's
3.5 years, $140,000, and all I do is live there, right, and pay on it. And so I leveraged that, right? I took advantage of that equity that could go away if the market goes down. The home equity line of credit won't, and you don't even have to use it, but I have it open, and I know it's there. It's like a checkbook that I don't have to fund, right? Now, it's funded by my equity in my home, but the fact is, it's a thing there that I am paying a very low interest rate on.
Yes, sir.
And if I take that, instead of going and getting, say, like an auto loan, right? Maybe you don't have great credit, and so your auto loan rate is 9-10%. You can get a HELOC for 4.5-5%, right? A home equity line of credit. You take that, and you have flexibility on how you pay it back too, right? You can just keep rolling it. You can use that to flip things. You can use that to, you can leverage your house. Let's say you want to get into, I really want to start buying and selling and brokering exotic cars. Think like Audi R8, Lamborghini Huracan, things like that in that $1 to $200,000 range, and use my HELOC to flip to start that process. Just because why spend my own cash when I can, use other people's money. So in this case, it's just equity in my own home. So.
To do that though, equity is a form of credit, and obviously if you don't own a home, from a personal standpoint, you have to have some form of good credit to get those resources and different things like that. Correct?
Yeah, and here's what you're banking on, right? So yeah, any type of credit that's not leaning on a collateral like a home.
Yes, sir.
Is considered unsecured debt. Right?
Yes, sir.
It's higher interest because the credit card company or whoever you're borrowing from is going to have higher risk in you.
Yeah.
But you have to look at it as, can you responsibly manage that debt? Debt is bad when it's irresponsibly built, right? But debt is how every millionaire, every billionaire has ever gotten that wealthy, is because they've leveraged their own future income potential based on knowing and calculating a risk.
Yes, sir.
So if you are using unsecured debt for yourself, you don't own a home, you don't have the collateral to do that, you have to be very sure that you can count on you, because now you're the collateral, right? And that's where people freak out. They go, what if I can't? What if I get a small business loan to start an inspection business or something, or start a cleaning service, and they're banking on themselves, and most people trust somebody else before they trust themselves or something like that. So anyway, that's one way. Sorry, you asked me about opportunities for homeowners. That's one, right? Leveraging your equity. Another one is if you have any kind of business, or you can form any kind of business, even if it's not really what somebody would call it, But the fact is, if you can form like an LLC or an S corp and have a home office, now you can start leveraging your home and writing things off. So it's not really, you're not really growing anything, but you're reducing your expenses by reducing your taxable income.
Yes,
so there's another way to do it. There's not a lot of, there are other things you can do, and it's maybe into the weeds, but those are probably the two main things that I like to talk about with homeowners or even non-homeowners. Like you can do the same in your apartment, right? Like because you have an apartment, right?
Yep.
So you can actually use a room of your apartment as a home office, pay yourself $500 a month in rent, and you write that off. And because it's not a home, there's no depreciation schedule. It's just $500 a month comes off of your taxable income because of that, right? So there's a lot of things you can do. Now you got to get in with the CPA and make sure your taxes are right, but that's another opportunity to just use what you have. Yeah, I mean, Jeff Bezos started in his garage selling books, right? And now he's one of the richest in the world.
Garages are honestly underrated because they're a good place to start anything, a band, a business.
Yeah.
Garages are very useful, man.
Use it as a garage for auto work.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right?
start an auto business. I mean, there's
all kinds of things you can do.
Lots of good things started in garages.
I've always wanted to build start a custom auto shop to do just custom car stuff, right?
That would be sick.
And somebody just the other day said, why don't you just start rolling the camera every time you work on your own car? Let that be the thing that gets you, the springboard. Go a YouTube channel, get that moving in my own garage, working on my own car.
Start talking.
Yeah, just talking. Yeah, I talk to myself anyway when I'm working on my car, so why not have a camera rolling, right?
Agreed.
And that can turn into something else. I could get the traction needed to get a YouTube channel going. The YouTube channel can get the actual business going. Next thing you know, you get yourself West Coast Customs, but less. I don't want to be rude. It's douchey. They're douchey.
It'd be like Pimp My Ride or something. I remember that show when I was a kid. That shit used to be.
They did do some pretty crazy stuff.
Exhibit was
cars,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yo, dog, I heard you like fish tanks. So I put a fish tank in your car.
Some of that shit. I wonder what the hell those cars look like nowadays, man.
Driving a Civic around with a fish tank in the back of it.
So there's a show or like a YouTube video. I can't remember now. I saw it and it's like Pimp My Ride cars now, where are they now? And they found some of these cars that got, and some of the people that got the cars built, more than half of them had to get rid of the car because the value associated with it was like more than their house is worth, right?
I think that's what happens with those house shows too.
Oh, absolutely, every time. Yeah.
And for the taxes on them.
Because if I give you something that I say that is valued at $200,000, right? Let's say a $5,000 Civic that I put $200,000 into, and a freaking fish tank and neon lights, you have to pay taxes on $200,000 of income, even though you got a car. With a freaking fish tank in it. So.
You gotta sell the car.
And like all those cars are in junkyards by now.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
I don't know, was that
with a dead fish and a little SpongeBob thing at the bottom of the fish.
And the projector in the trunk is sadly playing like Finding Nemo or something as the fish dies in the tank.
There used to be some weird shit they used to install in those cars, man.
So funny. Poor fish too, like, cause that big system behind it probably, so that always just crank the music and the fish is just getting rattled to death.
Oh yeah, and they were always like inside of a seat. Like, how do you feed them? That goldfish is dead before the car.
How do you clean it out? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
cool. I have this
gonna last
nasty
about
dead
2 months, and then the damn fish is done.
If that, 2 days. Actually.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's dead before it gets delivered to them.
Kill itself.
But anyway, gosh, I have no idea. Well, yeah, we were just talking about different ways you can start things up, but anything can become, if you've got enough passion and drive, anything can become that. Like West Coast Customs, what's his name? Ryan Friedlinger, the guy from West Coast Customs that did Pimp My Ride.
Yeah.
He started the way I just described, but like pre-YouTube, right? So he started in the 90s, just building cool cars.
Yes, sir.
And he like borrowed $100,000 from his grandfather or something like that. It wasn't even that much, it was small. So.
Well, see, I learned something new. I think you may have mentioned it to me, but I didn't know that was like maybe like one of your true passions, or that's something that you truly wanted to do. So I appreciate you sharing that with the viewers. Hopefully that kind of inspires some people who got a garage and been thinking about using it, for a while and never really had that motivation to do so. Something I asked you kind of before the show, some things we were working on personally. I want to kind of talk about infinite banking. A lot of people don't know about infinite banking. So when you express it to them, obviously when you express new ideas to people that don't know about it, it kind of go over their head, especially if they're not willing to learn about it. So just kind of go deeper into that and the importance or the true value of infinite banking.
Sure. So infinite banking is it's a concept, right?
Okay.
And it's called many different things. Infinite banking is probably the most popular one because it kind of encompasses all the different vehicles you can use.
Yes, sir.
The foundation of it is it uses life insurance as the platform, right?
Yes, sir.
And there are many different types of life insurance. You'll find the guys that are in the pyramid scheme life insurance companies selling what's called Index Universal Life as an infinite banking product, and it just doesn't work. All right, there's 1,000 different types of policies out there from 1,000 different carriers. Those don't work. But the basis is it uses life insurance as the vehicle that you essentially overlook permanent life insurance. So whole life and universal life and variable universal life.
Yes.
All three of those vehicles build cash value, and I won't go into the depth of why it works, how it works, but I will say why. The IRS looks at cash value in a life insurance policy as your premium, right?
Yeah.
And now it's going to grow. So like a whole life policy, for example, grows by dividends. So I use one that grows like 6% a year. It's not sexy, right? Because it's only growing at 6% a year. But the cool thing about it, the sexy thing about it is when everybody's panicking about the market, guess where my whole life policy is? Up. It's not down. It's always up. Always, always. And so that's the basis of why that works. But also the IRS looks at that as when you go to take money out of it. So let's say you've been building one for a few years, maybe 10 years or whatever. When you go to take money out, let's say you've put in $100,000 over the course of 10 years, right?
Yes, sir.
And you want to pull 50 grand out. No, I'm sorry. The cash value has grown because of the dividends, so now it's worth just say 120,000,
Yep.
right? Not sexy, right? But so 120,000, and you want to pull out 50 grand for yourself to invest in your business. Maybe you got to buy a car, whatever you need. The policy and the IRS, the insurance carrier, they don't care how old you are. They don't care how much money you make. They don't care what your tax status is. You pull that money out, it's in your account in 48 hours. The idea, though, is that you're borrowing it. You're not taking it, you're borrowing it. So even if you pull all the 120,000 out,
Yes, sir.
that 20,000 of gain normally would be taxable. What you're doing is you're borrowing it from your own policy, and then you're going to structure a repayment whenever you feel like it.
Yes, sir.
The sooner you do it, the better, of course, but you never actually have to if you don't want to. I'll explain that in a second. So because it's the first is a return of premium,
Yes, sir.
meaning you're taking your own money back out, there's no gains, so there's no taxes on that. When you go above and beyond the original amount put in, that gain would be taxable if you took it out, but you're borrowing it.
Yes, sir.
So what if I die without ever paying it back, right? Hopefully of old age, but what if I die without ever paying
Yes,
it
sir.
back? Well, my policy with 120,000 in cash value has probably got $1 million death benefit. They just take it out of the death benefit. So my family gets 880 instead of $1 million, right? So
Which is not bad.
yeah.
No.
So the reason it's called infinite banking is because you contribute to it monthly or annually for however long you set up, but usually
Yes, sir.
10 to 20 years at least, if not like at 30-ish, 29, how old are you?
28.
28, that's right. Gosh, I forget.
We're 30, bud.
What's this wee shit? You got a mouse in your pocket? Oh, it's 40. Yeah, I'm not 30. It was.
The home stretch.
So you could do it as just a straight whole life, right?
Yes, sir.
Where you pay to age 100. You can decide to stop paying at a certain
Yep.
point and let the cash value pay. But anyway, the reason it's called infinite banking is because you borrow from it without any underwriting, without anybody approving you.
Yes,
It's just
sir.
take your money out and use it, and then pay it back, and you're contributing still. A year goes by, you pull more money out, you pay it back, and you can infinitely just keep doing that
Yes, sir.
as long as you keep it within the parameters. So the reason it's attractive for anybody that has a need for that sort of thing, right? I don't mean anybody, because if you're not making rent, if you're struggling to keep food on the table,
Product for
it's not for you. But if you've got an abundance and you're saving, and you need a tool like that for whether it's business, whether it's just for personal use, whatever you want to use it for, then that's why it's attractive. It's growing without any volatility. It's growing at usually about 6%, depending on the carrier,
Yep.
and you can just keep doing it. So, for example, I got connected with a guy who does this, but on a much larger scale, like 30,000 viewers.
Oh, we're
It's
there.
only a little
We're
bit.
there, man.
Yeah, like 20% more than what you got.
Yeah, right. Something like
it's not
that.
bad.
Yeah.
But he's got guys like NBA players. Kevin Hart is in there. So
Oh, wow.
We got to line out to him right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Well, then I got two connections to him.
We got The Rock on the next show.
Rock? Nice. Is Chris Rock coming too? Because I love to see those two.
He's
back to
booked
back.
out. He's had a big summer, but he said he'll come back around the winter.
Huh?
Busy getting slapped wherever he's at. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we try to have him and Will on the show, but it wouldn't work, man.
A little bit of tension still. Well, but so like a guy like that, you could put $1 million a year into that,
Yes,
and
sir.
just build this massive
Yep.
pile of money that is. It's all. Oh, this is the other cool part. It's free from creditors. You go bankrupt, you get sued. It's protected, right? In most states,
wow.
not every state.
Wow.
Yeah, like I'm sure California has some rules that they can grab that.
I'm sure you're right.
But California and New York are just horrendous for insurance laws and
Anything.
investment laws. Yeah. For anything, yeah.
Visiting.
Yeah, living.
Yeah, existing.
Like it's cool to visit, but you can scale it however you want, right? So if it's the couple $100 a month, which that's how I started mine at 29, and I've used it a few times. I pulled 10 grand out one time just to. I didn't want to use credit. I wanted to use my own money.
Yeah.
And I'm paying. You pay a little interest on it. It's like 2%.
You're buying car parts, weren't you?
Maybe.
You pulled the money out for car parts.
But I didn't pay any interest on it because I just put it right back in. So I used, I leveraged it.
Hey,
Fair enough, man.
No,
It's your money and you wanted it now, so there's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's my money and I want it now. Call Chris Smith.
Exactly.
Oh man. I want to jump into another topic. So I know Corbin know this. I don't know if I exactly shared this with you, Chris. But a couple years ago, graduated from Spring GR. Spring GR was a 90-day entrepreneurship course. I feel like they gave me the fuel or the blueprint, really how to run a business and really put all our ideas in place. Saying that, the second phase of it is the 250 project. It's to work with minority businesses to get them to that 250 mark in sales and continue striving from there. Saying that, I want to say a class or two ago, our main topic was ideal or target customer. I want you guys to possibly share with the viewers what you guys think your overall target customer is when it comes to your business. I know that may be like a challenging question. When they first asked me, I had to think about it, but I was like, well, what's my average client? My clients are typically somewhat engaged or married. They typically may have a child or two. And then like price point house-wise, I would guess on average between like $250 and $350 in regards to purchasing a home.
Okay.
I would say I do a decent amount of educators on a yearly basis, a lot of engineers on a yearly basis, and a lot of tech people. Because we may ask each other what you do for a living or something like that. But like my client today, he actually works on building RVs.
Oh,
so
That's cool.
Like custom RVs or just like production?
Say that again.
Like custom built RVs?
I didn't ask, but probably I'm guessing half and half of the demand they may get on customs. So he was saying he pretty much know how to do everything in his house, but even though it's what I'm saying, it's the same thing. It's just it's bigger. So that's what he told me he was doing and everything like that. So what I'm saying, you pick up on those small things. And I even remember a few weeks ago when I used to work for GRPS, I had the opportunity to do the superintendent house. She was telling me she worked at GRPS. I asked her what she did. She told me she was the superintendent. I'm like, you used to be my boss. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I used to do security. So just those small personal conversations just and different things like that. But what do you guys feel like who your target customer may be?
I'll let you go first because I can talk on this for an hour or two.
Jeez, it's tough. I mean, you have ideal customer and then you have the customer that you want, and those for me are probably going to be different things. The customer that I want is the customer that has a $100 million business and everything they need, and they just pitch it to me, and I do what I do. But the idea, for me, I guess the ideal customers. Let's say if I was gonna specifically for building websites or something, I would say people who are in industries of things like trades and things like that, honestly.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because tradespeople, construction people, things like that understand the value of work and understand the value of hourly work and that sort of thing. So that's easier to communicate. Otherwise, the struggle that I have in my business is I think that a lot of times people think that they're doing me a favor more than I'm doing them a favor.
Yes, sir.
And they don't, and that's I understand why that is, because they come to you for expertise on something, but don't necessarily. It's a tough thing. It's abstract. It's hard to really understand. We're in the age of like digital website builders and stuff, so everybody thinks they can be a webmaster because they can get onto Wix and make a website in 5 minutes or whatever. And I understand that, but it's not how it works at all. There's so much more to it, and for some people that is the solution, to hop on Wix and spend 10 minutes making a templated site. I understand that, but depending on goals, expectations, 3-year look, 5-year look, that sort of thing, there's a lot to think about. There's obviously we're learning there's search engine concerns and things like that, but that all takes more and more time and energy and effort, and that's what I find. I think a lot of times people don't realize is for a person or an agency or whatever else it is to build a website, I have to obviously be able to build a functional website, but honestly we have to, unless the person coming to us is going to provide content, provide information and direction, which 9 times out of 10 they're not. I have to learn the industry too. So I have to at least learn surface level about the industry so we can make content, so we can figure out what other people in the industry are doing, how you can do better than that, how you can at least do as well as they're doing in certain things. You can't just really know about websites and also know about everybody's individual industry. And most people, when they come for a website, a lot of people don't even have a logo. So you're starting from absolute bare minimum, and sometimes that's a tough thing to communicate. Like how much time and effort and energy that's going to take. But people who tend to do that, who tend to do contract work or that sort of thing, really tend to have a better understanding of just how much time everything can possibly take, and have a better idea of what a simple job versus a medium job versus a high-end job, like what kind of time goes into those sorts of things. So those are some of my favorite people to work with, I would say, as opposed to people who just kind of have a thought on a whim, like, I'm going to make a website for something, and it's like, we really don't understand how much time and energy we're going to make this, do we? So I guess that's a kind of an ideal client for me. That would be,
nice.
Yeah.
How about for you, Chris?
So, money.
Well, I only want millionaires.
No. Honestly, I mean, don't get me wrong. That's a quick way to
for all of us, right?
Put some money in the bank, but.
He likes 10,000 square foot houses too.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like a result. I like to focus on. I think a lot of marketing is done by demographic, right?
Sure.
And demographics are. I think we all know what they are, but I mean, there are 3 different demographics in this room right now, right? Sir. You've got a 28-year-old black male from the city of urban Grand Rapids, right?
Yeah.
You've got a 37-year-old white male from BFE in central Michigan. And you got Corbin, a 30-year-old white male. Where the hell are you? Where are you from? You're from here? Yeah, Rockford. Yeah. And so that's demographics, right? And so the thing is, I can't find a common thread just by looking at those things between any of the 3 of us. If I see us described on paper, how do I determine the common thread?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, for sure.
So I look at psychographics, right? And don't get me wrong, demographics are important. I don't want an 85-year-old person with $3 to their name because I can't do anything for them.
Yeah.
But
nothing personal.
What I do is I put a guardrail around it in the form of demographics, right?
Yes, sir.
I want somebody between the ages of 25 and 65,
Yes,
and that's not very strict, but
Yes, sir.
25 to 65
with a little room.
with an established career or business, making at least $150,000 a year for the last 2 or 3 years, right?
Yes, sir.
That's kind of I would call that from a demographic standpoint, my ideal client.
Yes, sir.
But when I look at psychographics, right? Who are they interested in? Who are they following on Twitter? What do they do on the weekend? Are they family oriented? Are they entrepreneurial? Like, I want to know that when I work with somebody that we get along and that there's a common thread between us.
Agreed.
And that common thread can be something as simple as we both have this open-minded approach towards growth, right?
Yes, sir.
In wealth building.
Yeah.
And then because once you have that, the trust just happens. Like if I can speak to somebody authentically and they vibe with that,
Yes, sir.
there is no need for me to sell a thing. right?
Agreed.
We just establish a trust,
Yeah.
and I know I'm doing the right thing because I'm coming from my authentic self and saying this is what's going to help you achieve what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And then there's no selling then because I found the right person from a psychographic standpoint. Because that same, you take a 50-year-old white male that makes $300,000 a year, it sounds like a really awesome client, but he could be a total jerk. He could be completely disinterested in anything beyond his 9-to-5 job, right? I don't know. So I care about, are they, if they're following a guy like Jordan Peterson, right? That's or Gary Vee, or they've read all of both of Kyle Cease's, like something like that is where I'm interested in because I know that we're gonna have a connection at a deeper level. So
that's a good point.
And don't get me wrong, the way your businesses operate, that's not as important because it's more transactional.
I've
Mine
struggled
is
with that though. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, I completely agree.
yeah, your world is a little different, I guess, because you have to work with them for a while, so it's still transactional, but the transaction is longer. So yeah, you have to make sure that you have that you're.
It's a lot better when we get along and we kind of communicate and we think about things the same way.
And you have the same end in mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Because if you both see something totally different as the result, you're never going to get
I struggle with people that kind of want to just hack things together. That's not my nature. It goes against my nature. I really like to work with people that like to do things thoroughly. It's not because I want to milk, like I'll do it quickly. That's not the point. It's to milk more money out of it or something. I'll do things thoroughly quicker than most people will do things not thoroughly. So that's not usually the problem. It's just like I want it to be like in some sense it's like an art. Like for you it's the same thing. It's your reputation. Like I'm putting my reputation on the line. If somebody looks at it and you say, who's managing that for you or who's doing that website for you, like that's as much of a signature on that piece of art as anything. I hate putting bad art or something, just crappy stuff out there, and I don't even want somebody to ask, like, where'd that come from? Like, don't tell me it was me. I hate that kind of thing, because who knows how they're looking at it. Maybe they're asking because they want to make sure they avoid, who did that?
Right. Yeah. Oh gosh, I Corbin Perry.
Yeah, he did a great job for you. Like, I'll make sure to call him. No. So that's a great point.
Man.
That's a great point.
I think you can boil it down to this, right? As long as you keep, like I said, demographics as a guardrail, and you look at the psychographics of what you want as a client, and then become your ideal client. Become your ideal client, and you will attract your ideal client.
Yeah.
Right. Think about that, and I don't mean like for me, if I want my ideal client is somebody that's going to just hand me $100 million and say be my financial advisor for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And like that would be fantastic. I would never have to do a thing again. I'm kidding. I wouldn't just stop. But the point is, that person could be completely out of alignment with
who you are.
And I'm not going to become that, but I could become that person from a psychographics standpoint.
Yes, sir.
This $100 million client and me not $100 million client could be the same person. He just happened to have more money stockpiled.
Yes, sir.
So
like 50 million more than you, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Give or take. 3 or 4.
Standard deviation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I fortunately, well, I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, I only with my client typically for an hour.
Yeah.
I'm probably on the phone with them probably 2 minutes, just introducing myself, explaining the process.
Yeah.
Typically, a realtor has to deal with any person or anything, and obviously, when you meet somebody, you get somewhat of an idea of who they are. If you can relate to them or something like that. But typically, the whole time I'm just kind of explaining what the hell is going on in the house.
Once you come to my house and do an inspection, I'm the guy that follows you around and talks to you about every little thing you're looking at, and it takes 3 hours.
I've been in that situation before, and I'm on top of the roof when the client asks me what the hell is going on with their furniture, their foundation. I'm on your roof.
We'll talk about it.
I can be in the attic. They talking about something that's going on in the basement.
I don't do that. I'd be more like, what you looking at over there? What is something wrong with it? Why are you writing down notes? Is that foundation got a crack in it? Why are you looking so close? That's how I do it. But
I'm okay with that, man. I dealt with my clients like that before. But I think, go back to what you said, and I think what kind of hearing from what Corbin is saying, you want that trust piece. I have to you have to trust me with my creativity or with my service or the, you know, that my tool that we're using. If you don't trust me, it's impossible. I can't help you because you're going to think I'm doing something that I don't supposed to be doing, but in reality, no, this is how it's supposed to get done. Going back to what you said, you can't rush the things that you do because I don't know what it takes to build a website. That's why, you know, Court, that's, you know what I'm saying? I think that's why we've been so great working together for the communication and clarity piece. But just me being able to trust Corbin, him being able to trust me that I'm going to do what I say and vice versa. So, but I think that also comes with accountability, unfortunately. Some people don't like accountability, so you don't like that, you're not going to be able to really build that partnership with solid
some people are more interested in not having that sort of longer term partnership or that sort of thing.
And that's fine. You know, you won't find a partner or a long-term relationship with in a business relationship in everything.
Right.
And in fact, you shouldn't expect that, right?
Yeah.
Like you should expect that if you're going to grow in your business, like by adding partners or adding people that are going to operate as you, duplicating yourself, that's going to happen very rarely. But it will happen exactly when it's supposed to. If number one, you like the trust thing, right? Trust comes from within. And maybe that sounds a little woo-woo or whatever, but if you fully trust yourself and you're operating in your zone of genius, there is no trust is not a factor anymore because that's felt by everybody. And if they can't feel that, or maybe you just don't align with each other, then that wasn't meant to be. Again, in more transactional businesses, they don't necessarily care who you are as a person, right? They care that you show up on time, you get the job done, you do it thoroughly, and you explain it. And they're going to use you again, or they're going to refer you because you did that well. But they're not getting into the depth of that, right?
Agreed.
And every business is going, like my business it's like 100% about trust, and so I just come to the table with authenticity, and if they don't like that, then it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
And there's a million more, there's 40 million people in the United States, and if a third of them are kids, that means there's 100 million or so people that I can. So what's one person saying no to me? So
that's hard to get over at first when you start out in business. I feel like it's because most people have that problem. Like you get to a point where you actually can and sometimes want to say no to certain business, which is weird because at first you kind of want to be yes. You want to make and when you start, you kind of want to make it look like you barely have time, but you're the yes man. But then you end up being like, oh my god, I barely have time and I need to say no to some of these because like some are just taking way more time and energy and paying the same as others that are not, and it's like a weird situation to actually get to that point where you're like, wow, I need to maybe actually filter or qualify my business, and that's not anything personal, it's just like, it'll be better for everyone involved if we do that, it'll just be better. Yeah.
Well, I think what I have found, because I spent the better part of my career so far chasing.
Yeah.
And when you chase, you don't get the right person. And so you're going to run into that.
Yeah.
And because you're chasing, you're coming from a place of like scarcity.
Yeah.
If I don't get that client,
right.
I don't know who I'm going to get next, right?
Right.
Or whatever the situation, it's scarcity because you don't see the fact that there's so much abundance around us that the next person will be the perfect one. And if you just took on this person that you did you took on a client out of scarcity, you just took time away from the perfect client that was about to call you. Or you were about to call next.
Right.
Because you got excited and you went, oh, cool! I solved my problem, which is only immediate, right? And so when you're, if you're chasing, you're not going to find it. But if you are you're becoming an authority in your industry, becoming a source of knowledge and guidance, you get chased by the right person. So,
yeah.
I think we all go through that at a phase of your business, especially at the beginning. You don't really get the pleasure of picking out your client. You just got to take them, learn that experience, and then you continue to grow and different things like that from there. So we're going into, like I said, one of the last segments of the show. Like I said, the podcast is named Under the Rug, to where we kind of talk about the things that get swept under the rug from a home maintenance standpoint, and then just kind of talk about the ins and outs of our businesses and entrepreneurship. Saying that, going into, like I said, the summer months, a lot of people right now are traveling. I want to make sure they're doing the necessary things to prevent anything from going on at their property while they're traveling. I say that because sometimes I hear clients say they come back home and they got a flood in their basement. And that's probably because you probably don't even have a alarm system on your sump pump. Those small things, so you are able to be aware when your sump pump is going out. It's a good chance it probably went out before you left. We get a bad rain, and you got water in your basement. Small things as far as making sure that your dishwasher is not hardwired. The reason I say that, dishwashers are typically one of those things that you typically run when you're leaving the house and when you're going to sleep. You don't want to wake up or you don't want to leave to any major leaks. You don't want to wake up to any major, fires or anything like that because it's simply hardwired and there's nothing to protect it, forbid that there is a leak or anything like that. So doing all of those small things, making sure you got your smoke alarms in the right places, carbon monoxide detectors, doing all the preventative things to make sure you run into any major safety issues. The reason I also say that, and this is probably what 99% of homeowners don't do. They don't do an inspection before they leave their house. The reason I say that, I did a property last week, and shout out to Andrew. He was shadowing me. Andrew is actually the other guy that we got coming on board as a future inspector, saying that this was the perfect inspection for him. The first 3 inspections he went on, I said, damn man, all of these houses are easy. It's not too much to write up. It's pretty in and out. This 4th house had probably about 50 things wrong with it. And probably 10 or 12 was major things, saying that they had a leak in the basement that was underneath the half bathroom, and it was a drain pipe that was disconnected going to the sewer line. This damn drain pipe was above the damn circuit breaker box. So when you open and the cellar came down, because this house was a little different. Like I said, it was actually a law firm that was dealing with a trust account that hires to do the house. So the sellers, or not the sellers, but the owners were there the entire time. So I'm like, I typically don't grab them. I'm like, y'all probably should know what the hell is going on. They said, well, we thought we needed a bigger amp rating because we kept having shortages. I said, you have 150 amps. This house is about 2,500 square feet. You're okay. What you need is to stop this water from going into your breakers.
Right.
That's probably allowing shortages.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, I'm like, okay. You know what I'm saying? So it was truly funny, man. But it was the perfect example for Andrew to really see how to interact and engage with clients. But I say that because what may be a small check is that you do run all the water in your house to make sure there are no leaks before you do leave the property, and different things like that. I'm not talking about necessarily winterizing your house before you leave for a week or anything like that, but making sure everything is in place, you know what I'm saying? So you don't come back to the surprise.
I mean, in my house, it's one valve, and I just open the faucets. Boom! It's winterized. Like, why not? Because especially if you're traveling in the winter, right? If you're going to Florida in the middle of December, and we get a cold snap, or actually more like January, February, and we get a cold snap, why not winterize? Because how hard is it usually, right? And I don't mean like blow out the lines, but turn off the main line, open the faucets. Now you don't have to worry about if your furnace dies while you're gone and it's 20 degrees or 0 degrees out.
Agreed.
You're fine.
That's true.
Yeah,
and even checking before you leave doesn't take anything other than, like, I mean, what we do when we get to a house for an inspection is run the water. If you want to test if the water's leaking, run the water for a little bit, and then pay attention to where the water goes and see if it's leaking anywhere. Something that's fun. It's funny because it sounds so simple, but how often do people really do it? I mean, actually turn the water on for a few minutes and monitor it.
Agreed.
You know what would be a genius marketing plan for you?
What's that?
Offer pre-vacation home checkups, because you and I, we know how to look at these things, right?
Agreed.
I can tell you right now, if my wife, for example, if she didn't have me around, she would not. She'd be the one going, I thought we just needed a bigger breaker panel. Like, that would be her, because she has no clue. She doesn't even go into the basement unless she needs to, unless she absolutely needs to.
Yeah.
And so there are, and she's just one of them. And she's got me to like guide her, but because I'm OCD about that sort of thing. I'm the guy, I'll walk around the house 15 times making sure everything is perfect before
Make sure that door is like I don't know if I like that damn door, but
Yeah, I look at things like sump pumps because I experienced that. My first house flooded like 5 times because of stupid sump pumps.
Yeah.
Oh my god! But like, think about that. You could charge $100 maybe.
Yes, sir.
Quick checkup.
Quick checkup. Like, you're gonna go in there, you're in and out in 30 minutes. You're gonna look at all the common things
on the water.
Yeah, you're not doing like a write up. You're just going around and going, okay, here's some things you need to make sure you do, and da 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 da. And it's not going to make you any money. You make $50 or $100, but probably eat up in gas money.
Yeah.
But what you do
nowadays.
Yeah, and you could send like Andrew out. You could send anybody out that has that normal, like that vision of what should be done.
Yeah.
And now you've put your name of your company into somebody's hands that goes, wow, I feel really good about this. They're going to think of you.
Throw that magnet on the fridge.
Yeah, throw the magnet. Oh my gosh, magnet on the fridge. and next thing you know, they're going to talk to somebody, or they're going to sell their house, or whatever. They're going to buy it, whatever, and they're going to call you.
Yeah.
And that just opens up like now maybe it's a lot of time, but that's why you get somebody in there that you just let them have the $100.
They're probably gonna mostly come at certain times of the year if you did something like that. I mean,
yeah.
they'd be all
Spring
throughout.
break.
Most likely, you'd have a couple of weeks each season or so where they'd have more of them, and if you could do it in
Or the
some way, you
holidays
could
and
try
stuff.
to do
Yeah.
10 of them in a day or something. Then you're narrowing down how much time you're really spending on them, and it shouldn't take that long. Just get through, you know.
If you weren't leaving on Thursday, I would tell you, post up on your Facebook or however you get a quick word out to people,
Yes, sir.
and say, hey, I've got 5 spots open for a
See what
pre-vacation
happens.
inspection.
Yeah.
$100 a pop.
Just see what happens.
happens.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
How cool! Like, it costs you nothing except
Agreed.
time. And then
Agreed.
you're 30 minutes, and just do it within a radius or something, so you're not all over the place. Because
Make yourself a checklist of what you want, and then when you go through, you can just go through it with them, sort of thing, where you just so you're not like going on the spot or whatever. You have kind of a quick routine or whatever for things that you're checking. It's not a bad idea.
I think it'd be great.
That's not a bad thought, man.
It's kind of an interesting way to do networking and not necessarily, like I said, necessarily get rich on it, but also not lose money on it. Really, kind of at least paying for your little bit of your time and gas, and probably extend into something else. Yeah.
No, and it's the inspection industry equivalent of what we did at our pizza stores. We would go to all the local like plants in Brighton, and we'd bring a stack of large pizzas and just give them to people. It cost me, I don't know, $2-3 per large pizza.
Sure.
Just pepperoni round pizzas, just hand them up and say, hey, lunchtime, And all I did was put my product in front of them, and if they liked it, guess what they're going to do next time? They're going to order from me.
Yeah, fair enough.
You put your product, which is your service, in front of them in a time that they don't need your inspection services for buying or selling at that time, but when they do, they're going to think of you.
Plus, with Andrew and everything talking about sprinklers and stuff.
Yeah. Andrew actually, man, he's already licensed in underground sprinklers, pool systems, septic and well inspections,
interesting stuff.
and
you know what I mean? Like,
and sewer line. And those are the things. If you do live in a rural area, you should know what your septic looks like before you leave. Forbid that something major happens.
I experienced a septic issue last fall.
Mm-hmm.
My first home had a septic that just naturally it never needed pumping,
What you mean it never needed pumping? I never knew a septic that never needed pumping.
So apparently, if properly maintained and with the right bacteria and everything in the septic, it'll just dissolve itself. It eats itself, and then it turns into liquid, and then goes into the leach field. My parents' house, I grew up in, never had in the 20 years that I lived there, they had it pumped once. And I was asking my dad about it.
Wow.
Patch of grass.
There always is, yeah. Oh my gosh, over my septic, even like in the spring, when that's the first grass that's like 5 feet tall because it's warm up. It never freezes because you've got only 4 feet of ground and it's warm. But that's something that nobody thinks of. Even I didn't think about that, and I think about these sort of things all the time.
Right.
You could even do winter and spring, if Andrew's certified in sprinklers, you could winterize.
Yeah, and I was just thinking too, a lot of people, even not so much vacation, but a lot of people do like 6 and 6 now. I got a lot of snowbirds here, go down to 6 months
There's
here,
an
6 months
abundance
back.
of people in that field.
God, more and more every year.
Retirees.
Can you imagine getting paid I don't know, a couple $100 a visit to like for those snowbirds, popping in every month, once a month, just going through the checklist, and then you do it.
That's some what we kind of talked about
That's
with
true.
the maintenance. Yeah,
And they come,
wow.
and the funny thing about those people is they do almost tend to always be around the same couple weeks. It's so funny.
Oh, yeah.
Like always
Well,
around certain weeks in May, couple weeks in May, they'll usually come back from Florida, and then I feel like a lot of them usually go down there about fall, October time.
Yeah, October, November. Yeah.
That way they never see anything lower than 70 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is actually a perfect little rotation. Like my grandparents started going to Florida like 2 months. They'd go kind of like early in the year, like springtime or something, and that was nice. They're like, hey, we should do another month. Maybe we ought to buy a place down here. You know, and then pretty quickly went to 6 months out of the year. You know, so there's so many of those people. So many.
And you could build a whole team. Like you could build out a full home services team
people
with that.
also just do
But
that.
we gotta stop talking about this on camera, man.
Yeah.
What
Right,
my
right.
competitors may see, man, but no,
Yeah, I get
you're
it.
the first.
That's a good thought.
You're the first guest to actually present any business ideas
Mm-hmm.
to us, so I appreciate that.
You gotta get
man.
better guests in because that. No.
That's what I said. The next guest, you gotta present an idea. If not,
Yeah.
we're not
I
gonna put your ass
raise
on.
the bar.
Yeah.
And that might be a total dog shit idea, but
It's an interesting.
I don't think so, because up there at the lake house, when I have conversations, all of those people have a property in Florida.
oh, especially in the lake house, man.
It's so much damn wind. What
Yup.
can we do to? Well, it's one guy. What the hell is his name? His name is Hank. You'll know his house when you see. He comes. He's right. He's that brown house when before you come up to the hill.
Gotcha.
Or whatever.
So.
He puts not necessarily tires. I don't know what it's like window covers around his windows and his patio doors. So when the wind blows higher, none of that shit is eating up around the window sills. Because when your window sills get messed up, that's when your windows start leaking.
Yeah.
And when I told Chris and Ray, I'm like, damn, I've never seen no shit like this. This guy know what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
So
and stuff like snow fences up. Like if you have a lakefront property and you stagger some snow fences in there, that'll stop a lot of the the wind and stuff.
I've seen
Agreed.
those before.
And just especially like it depends on which way they face, right? Because wind tends to come from a certain direction.
Yeah.
It seems to, especially on lakes. So if you have a house where you get a lot of snow drifts off the lake, put snow fences up. Stagger a few up your yard especially if you're on a hill. And that'll help even more. Stop
Agreed.
more elements from coming up to your house. So
agree.
yeah, like these are all things that it's right in
I
your
gotta
wheels.
write this shit down, man. But no.
It's all recorded.
That's a
It's
good. Yeah.
Just watch our podcast.
But no, I definitely think that's
That's a good idea.
like I said, me and Corbin we're working on what kind of things can we continue branching on other than home inspections. And I think especially with this market, the good thing is now what we're seeing, we can do less inspections and make more money just because of the different add-ons and different services. However,
Diversifying your income.
yeah. So I'm definitely with that, man.
I only need 70%.
Yes, sir.
70%.
Yes, sir. We got you,
Well, make
man.
sure that's 70%. Yeah, 70.
Point seven.
Not 7%. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, if you think it fits with what you want to do, then
Interesting.
Yeah, we have to have that
Especially when you have
conversation,
more
man.
heads. Something you probably wouldn't add by yourself, but as we're thinking, add more people to the team.
Huh?
yeah, because you'd probably need temp help, like you said. It all seems to it's going to be in waves.
You could easily do 10 of those in a day.
You definitely could. Yeah, they shouldn't be long, and you could schedule them in such a way. Honestly, it'd be great if because especially when you have a lot of people that are have multiple houses and stuff, and shout out to everybody who does. No offense, which what I'm about to say, but they're usually not urgent. They're not in a rush a lot of times. So say, hey, you guys are gonna be there for this week, or whatever. We'll stop by between 8 and 3 on. Friday or something like that. Like, okay,
There's scheduling apps that will also route for you. So like if you want to make your service
that's
area
true. Yeah.
big, just
You can
schedule
plot
it so that hey, if you're in Grand Rapids, you're these weeks. If you're in Mount Pleasant, you're these weeks. Wherever I don't know where you go with that, but
yeah.
wherever you're going, just make sure that you sign up everybody in that area.
That's
And you do all your marketing, a month or so beforehand. Hey, if you have a vacation
Right.
coming up, I'll come do a a vacation inspection for you for $100 or whatever,
I like that.
and do it professionally. Like get a tablet that you can do a checklist on. You
Right.
email them the checklist. You write any notes in. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
all
what's
it
this?
would be
That'd be
a
easy.
checklist.
Yeah, that'd
Can you imagine the peace of mind that they'll have? So that's where the relationship comes in for you, right? Like you go from transactional to relationship based because they're sitting in Florida enjoying their month long, or they're in their snowbirds in there for 6 months, and they're getting email updates from you. And you're going in and checking on their home, their biggest asset, usually, right? Most people's biggest asset is their home, aside from their income, I guess. But
Sure.
and then and they're getting email updates from you that hey, I went in, checked, everything's fine. I noticed that whatever. Like
You're underwater.
yeah.
Your house is flooded. Ending your vacation right now.
Dude, and then you build a relationship if you don't already with like restoration companies or
Yes.
something, and
Yes.
you can be like, hey, don't worry about it, I got it covered.
Yeah.
Like, you have to pay for
We'll
it.
help you coordinate it or whatever.
But yeah,
I'll send you the invoice once.
Right. Yeah, you're billed for this, baby. Go on, your insurance is probably getting billed for it. But like that, all of that ties right in with your core business model, and any of those components that you want to bolt on, you could easily
Find
do
the
it.
peace of mind.
And there's no risk, because what happens if it sucks and it doesn't pan out? Just don't do it.
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
it. You didn't buy any equipment or a building. You just did.
No, yeah.
Agreed.
So
I think the only way it wouldn't be worth it is if you weren't intentional about some of the scheduling and things. Like if you're going out, you're driving 30 minutes and 30 minutes back, and you're doing one, and then an hour later you're doing another. And
You
then
just don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. You just need to
You
make
need
it so that you can kind of do a bunch in a day and do it in an area and that sort of thing. So as long as you plan it out, then it's going to be more worth it. You're not spending a bunch of money doing it. You're just making it efficient. Yeah.
And like you said, they're usually pretty flexible. Because like if I'm going on vacation for a week, you're not gonna. I don't need you the day I leave to come in and check.
Because
Because not much is gonna change, right? Like
Right.
what you're looking at.
Right.
So if you came by in the 2 weeks before I
Right.
went on vacation,
Right.
and since they're all relative, so then what you do is you say, okay, I'm minimum of 5 slots that I'm gonna fill in per area, and if it doesn't fill, then you say, hey, can you be flexible and I'll come like the day before you leave, or whatever, or while you're gone, or whatever.
Yeah. See if we can get some more slots filled or something there.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that, Chris. I truly do, man.
That's an interesting idea.
Leading into the last segment of the show, we always talk about our personal/business goals, the different things that we're working on. Do you have any, specific goals that you're working on personally or professionally that you'd like to achieve in the next month or so?
Next month or so? Well, business-wise, I'm building a Facebook group called Wealth and Cash Flow.
Yes, sir.
It's really hard for me not to just troll in there.
You can troll. It's
No,
engagement, man.
Don't give me permission because I will ruin that group.
Professional troll. The algorithm loves engagement.
Gonna end up starting fights in there. I'm just messing with you. It's cool though. I like the idea.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's literally I
People engage.
put together last week.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going through a program to, it's very structured, how I'm doing it. And the idea is within 90 days to get to 250 members. I'd like to see 1,000 members by the end of August.
Okay.
So 1,000 members, and because what that allows me to do is impact those 1,000 people in some way, right? And it could be something as simple as education about general finance kind of concepts. The point of the page though or the group, is to help people create wealth and understand ways that it can be done. Because I think a lot of people are in this. If you're under 6 figures and you're just a regular person, you think this is how I'm going to be the rest of my life. Literally every person on this planet has the potential to be the next Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. It's just a matter of timing and sheer grit, right? Like you have to decide and risk and sacrifice. And I don't know about sacrifice because when you're taking a risk that could be massive. Massively, create massive wealth. What's the sacrifice? Your old way of thinking?
Well, that's the sacrifice in the sense of, I feel like, generally speaking, there's exceptions, but I feel like the sacrifice is sometimes just in your time, and whether that's like leisure time or family time. You don't need to sacrifice all of it, but I think you know. Some people want to work 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours, and be done. You know?
If what you do is in alignment with your core values, there is no sacrifice.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Right? Because anything that you would sacrifice at that point is something that isn't in alignment with your core values.
Yeah.
If your core value is not to work a 9-to-5 job, but it's to create something, like an inspection company, then there is no sacrifice. You probably you can maybe look back on the day you decided to do it and go, ooh, I was full of fear, but that was just fear.
Maybe
it wasn't an actual sacrifice.
On an individual level, sometimes people need to sacrifice bad habits.
Oh yeah, but I mean, do you call that a sacrifice, or do you call that shedding?
It's a sacrifice if you gotta sacrifice something you enjoy. Let's say you drink too much, you know. And I see what you mean, because honestly, let's say you drink too much and it makes you less productive. Really giving it up's not a sacrifice, because you're gonna be healthier, you're gonna be better off for it.
Exactly.
But you feel like it's a sacrifice because maybe you're leaning on it as a crutch.
It's all about how you look at it.
Yeah, it is. But you in that moment need to sacrifice something that you enjoy to get something, because look at it this way, you're getting instant gratification. You need to sacrifice that and move it to long-term results.
Sure.
You need to take that and put it into something that isn't going to get you the kind of the buzz that you're getting or the excitement that you're getting from this every day. You're moving that into somewhere else. You're not giving it up entirely, but you're moving it into the future, because you got to take some of that time and shift it into being the next Bezos or whatever. You probably can't be Bezos and get
Why not?
every night. I don't know.
Why not?
Maybe.
He was just some nerdy dude in his garage.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know the Bezos story, to be honest.
That's it. He was a nerdy dude in the garage selling books. I mean, it was the Amazon bookstore at that point.
That is pretty wild.
And it was profound in itself. But
and
I'm sorry, I know we're way off the question. But I have one thing to say about that, about the quitting drinking or whatever. I quit drinking, a few months ago now?
Yeah.
It was March or
whatever.
And
I remember the time you did, it was a regret. That when we were bowling, we both did. We were like, let's not do that anymore.
Oh, the one time we decided, God, it's been a month. It was terrible. I felt like I was drinking poison.
Yeah.
So, but like in the moment, I maybe looked at it like, well, I don't know, because I had gotten myself to the point where I was like, I just want to do things and put things in my body that align with my values, right? And alcohol wasn't one of them. And it's not like you depending on who you ask, you could say I drank too much or just drank a regular amount, but
I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say it was certainly something that's like. It's just something. Some people are just alcoholics.
I wouldn't say that. But at the end of the day, it wasn't allowing me to be who I am.
Your full potential. It's keeping you from
nicotine. Alcohol, tobacco, weed, all that stuff. It changes who you are for that moment now. Okay, I smoke a little weed still, but that's about the only thing I put in my body that's not in alignment with me. So anyway, the point. Let's get back to your question.
Sure.
So the goal is the Facebook group, Wealth and Cash Flow, Create Your Own Lifestyle.
Yes, sir.
That is one of my biggest focuses right now, because it is going to kind of transcend how I do business.
Yes, sir.
I as you know, I moved to my home office. Haven't finished my home office yet, so I'm working just in another part of my basement, which is fine. But I position myself in a way that allows me to do business so much more efficiently, and I'm attracting people that I want to do business with, as opposed to chasing people that I think I need to do business with.
Sure.
So that's the major goal. And the other one was to run that Tough Mudder, the personal side, run a Tough Mudder. I did that a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. So that was one. I got to figure out another one.
More on the physical side of things, you mean, or just in general?
I don't know. Yeah, and it's weird. And again, maybe this sounds woo-woo, but goals are. If everything you do is in alignment with your values, and I know I keep saying that, but it's so true. Important.
Yeah, 100%.
If it's in alignment with your values and you are just flowing, goals are not really a thing, because a goal is something that you get to, and then you're done, and then you're like, okay, now I got to create a new goal.
Yeah.
How about just operate as if you're always in that goal?
Yeah.
And so you always, even if you're 20 years out from it, you're always in it. You're there. You just you haven't done the tangible results yet. No big deal, because you'll get there because you're in alignment with it. So, a small component of that would be, like I said, 1,000 people in my group. So, if you're watching Wealth and Cash Flow, Create Your Own Lifestyle,
Absolutely.
Facebook group, You have to. It's
We'll,
invite. It's a private group, so you have to.
I wonder if you can make a link to it though, and people can still. We can put the link in online and in the description and stuff.
Yeah, and I can email
We
it.
tried.
We'll get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Affiliate
Referrals. Yeah.
Tell you what, you got $1 million business idea.
Yeah.
So we'll call it even.
Yeah.
How
fair
about
enough.
that?
That's a fair trade. Yeah, that's funny. We'll just hook a little thing on the link so we know how many we got them.
I don't know. Can you do affiliate links like that? I don't know. It'd be kind of cool.
There's a will, there's a
We'll
way.
figure
If there's a will, there's a way.
Tell you what, you guys
man.
can be in the group for free.
I'm already in the group. That's not a good deal.
You'll get the bill, but I'll just erase the.
It's
You didn't realize it was
to be a
gonna be
paid invoice.
That's $1,000 a month.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's
well,
like
then
it's better than going to
we
college.
better hurry up
Cheap.
then. That's definitely better than.
No, but honestly, it's all about like the whole idea. I know maybe it sounds selfish, but the fact is that's how I'm going to impact people in a more.
That makes a
effective
lot
way.
of sense. Tons of people have impact. I've been thinking about that sort of thing too. Yeah, but
And-
you can reach way more people that way.
Oh, absolutely. But like, if I just get 1,000 people in my group, that to me that is 1,000 people that I have the ability to touch and impact in some way,
Definitely.
and then that'll just keep growing.
Yeah.
So
Cheers to that.
How about you, Core? What's going on with your goals? I remember last time we was still talking about the cleaning company, and maybe if you want to share with the viewers about your new job,
Yeah,
new
kind of.
opportunity that you got.
Cleaning thing kind of on pause. I've been so busy the past few months, which is not complaining at all. It's been fantastic. I honestly, my goal is probably to figure out how to get somebody to work for me.
Yes,
And, that was kind of part of the goal with the cleaning idea. I still think that's definitely viable. It might be something, the end of the year always tends to get a little slower for everyone with everything, so maybe that'd be a better time. I'm still keeping that in my back pocket, and part of the reason for that was because to some degree, I feel like when it comes to cleaning, it's not anybody, but you know what I mean. When I say anybody can do it, you can kind of teach people a standard procedure. And for what I do otherwise in terms of website stuff and just everything else that I do, definitely much more difficult, but I do think that there's going to be some people out there that I can probably find, and I think I need to try to find those people that are either maybe not on par with me, but maybe want to learn some of that kind of stuff, and maybe I can be a teacher. There's only one way to find out, so I got to try and find somebody or a group of people or something that's interested in maybe doing that sort of thing. Maybe people that are just interested in doing it for themselves, but also want to make some money or something like that on the side. I don't know. So that is kind of a goal for me, though, is to just start pursuing, trying to find somebody that would be interested in some sort of work that I do. And then the other thing, I did put that on Facebook. I'm working with Give, Send, Go, which is a crowdfunding site. They got real popular over the last year or so because GoFundMe, competitor site, everybody knows GoFundMe. They do a fine job, but they've had some controversies as they've pulled down certain campaigns for various political reasons, and probably for the most part to their own demise. I mean, that basically just led people off of that site, because if somebody wants to donate to a cause and they're not going to have that cause there, then someone else is just going to throw it up somewhere else. And so that site for now has been Give, Send, Go, and it's a Christian-based crowdfunding site. They don't actually require that you pay them anything when you use the service, so that was kind of their big thing. They started many years ago, not ever necessarily intending to be in the position that they're in now or competing with GoFundMe the way they did, but like I said, the political things kind of happened. People just found them, and so they've kind of blown up. But yeah, their thing is GoFundMe requires you pay them like 5% or whatever on top of that's what they take out of the campaigns or whatever that they run. This site doesn't do that at all. They let you optionally give money if you want to when you're donating to a campaign. So all the money they make is pretty much by donation, and it turns out that a lot of people do want to just donate, so it keeps them running. They have actually a decent size team of developers, and they're kind of growing. So I kind of slipped in just at the right time, right place at the right time. They were working on a rebuild of their site and looking for more front end developers. So here I am, and yeah, it might be something that actually turns into something longer term. I got a lot to think about right now because they're working on actually another rebuild, which is on a platform that I'm really interested in learning. So I might have an opportunity to get paid to learn. So
That's always
there's not much better than that in my book. Yeah, that's usually when I do the best. Is when I'm like right up against what I know and what I could learn. So yeah, they're a great team of people to work with. It's all remote, so. Yeah, pretty much when I'm not working with John, I'm working on their site, which is really nice. I can do work from home, I can work from here. Everything's just
That's awesome.
remote. I can work from my laptop if I wanted to. They're all really, really nice people, and talk about growth. I mean, they're definitely on a trajectory to grow. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I'm definitely. I mean, you guys know me at this point. I don't really seek opportunities that are going to kind of lock me into anything necessarily. I tend to bounce around things and do different things. I tend to like that a little better, but I don't know. Sometimes, this one's definitely kind of beckoning me in some sense. I just feel like for not necessarily long term, but for a little while that I could get a lot out of it if I was to commit a little bit more of my time. So right now I'm only probably 15 to 20 hours a week or so, just because I bounce around other stuff, So yeah, I got a lot to think about over the next couple months or so. I don't want to miss out on they're moving, so they're moving on converting to newer platforms and doing big things. So they won't leave me behind, but if I want to have a bigger part in that, in some sense, then I would probably have to set aside a little more time to that specifically. So but with the flexibility and everything that I could probably get with that, I don't really see why not. So.
That's awesome. I'm glad that panned out. I know you had talked about it a while ago. So.
Yeah. We actually just kind of had like they're the owners, founders, great people. We just had a little conference. They kind of go through and do like reviews with everybody just to see how everything's going. And we established it had already been something like 3 or 4 months. It just flew by. I was initially just going to kind of help them launch their rebuild, see how that went and everything, and then they kind of asked me to stick around because it was going pretty well. So they work with a lot of overseas people, and I want to be careful how I say this. People do things differently, People just do things differently. So
business culture is so diverse.
People
especially like Japan, China, like business over there it's a very different animal.
Yeah, and we need each other in some sense. So it's all good, but it's just funny. It has been pretty entertaining and fun working with different people at far different places in the world and everything. Just seeing how they do things different is always pretty fun. We all have things to learn from each other though, which is pretty cool, So yeah, it's cool, definitely.
That's what's up, man. Thanks for sharing that with everybody and everything. Yeah. Congratulations again, bro.
Thank you.
On your new opportunity, bro. I know my past goal was being more so consistent and intentional just with my actions, my speech, and exactly who I surround myself with. I believe I've been doing a good job at that. That's something I'm going to continue to strive on just because I think life should be intentional, meaning where you're supposed to be at is a place you should want to be at and a place that, you should want desire to be at. Desire to be. So just being super intentional on those different things that go back and kind of what you said with your mindset, and really to where if you don't necessarily have to create goals if you kind of live within, that those means and different things like that.
And I definitely don't mean to like say goals are bad.
No.
I just mean I don't really think about them because
it's easier to have a framework that kind of just embodies
a path.
Yeah.
I like that framework.
Yeah, it's a framework. It's a lifestyle, for lack of a better word. But people usually think like diets and things. That's all good too. But this is more. It's bigger than that. Yeah.
Well, I love the way you articulated your goal. You didn't say my goal is to make X dollars or build this or whatever. It was to connect with intention and purpose with the right people.
It's behavior.
Your goal is very controllable by you, and so you can control the outcome.
Yes,
I think too many people create goals that are like, I want to make $100,000 this month. Cool. How are you gonna do that? And then when you don't, what do? Do you fail? Is that a failure, or is that just like what is that?
Because then the answer would probably be by being intentional with certain things. So really, you're on a better path than just having like yeah, I just want to do this. You know, it's like, okay, cool. The
Yeah.
method has to be the behavior. You have to alter behavior usually to accomplish the goal. So the goal is probably the
Exactly.
behavior in the first place.
So I want to change my answer. Because that's exactly what I'm doing. My goal to get 1,000 people is being intentional and purposeful. With
Yeah.
It's doing everything that I do with purpose.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise,
And that-
why do it?
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, what's the point, right? If it's not an alignment, right? And again, alignment. But I love that. That's cool.
Yeah,
and
that's
you're gonna do it. I
I
know you are.
appreciate it, man.
Husband, you still been hitting? You still been exercising?
No, so I cut that
He's gonna go
off.
play football tomorrow morning.
So I ended that the end of June, the start of June schedule. I just, man, for some weird reason, when I came back off vacation, I was supposed to get a spark. You know what I'm saying?
I don't usually when I.
Yeah, and I don't know, and I mean, it's a spark there, but just the workout piece, man. It's times I can just go out and jog consistently for a couple months for 2-3 miles a day, but then it's sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna sit my ass here. But when I get to do that, my brain does typically work better because when you run, you're able to kind of think through things. If not, you're gonna think about how much you run and then you're gonna stop. So that's typically a good exercise for me. But I know my new goal and what I want to continue to work on is bringing on Andrew on board and really finalizing those additional services to really to have him be a positive asset for the business, and hopefully by next episode, so the end of July, to have him actually be fully trained and doing his own thing. So
That's awesome.
It's really awesome.
and everything like that. So Chris, for our viewers, let them know how they can contact you and where to contact you at.
Yeah. Well, obviously through the group, the Wealth and Cash Flow Facebook group. That's everybody that I talk to. I want to funnel to that because it's going to be an awesome source. It's building, right? It's brand new, but it's going to be an awesome source of knowledge. And I'm bringing in other group experts. I'm actually partnering with a guy down in Tennessee that is very much the same. Is cut from the same cloth as me, and has a tap into a different market that So I'm helping him with a lot of things, and then he and I are also focusing on the Facebook group to grow that. So that's one way. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to play footsie with you. The email address, ctsmith01@eaglestrategies.com. That's kind of not sexy, but the website.
You got one.
I got one, 01.
Yeah.
There is actually another Chris Smith in my firm.
What's he 000?
He's just C. Smith.
Bastard.
Yeah, I know, right? I got CT Smith. Anyway, we get each other's emails occasionally. The best, honestly, the best way is the group. The other one is the website. It's just chris-smith.biz. So you go to that website, you're going to see my beautiful face on there, and I'll be honest, it's a very generic website because our industry is very restrictive with that.
Mm-hmm.
The Facebook group is where you're going to see
So they
our
provide
magic.
them, or did you have to do it?
It's mostly provided.
Yeah.
I had to go through a company that my firm allows me to go through,
Yes, sir.
or I pay 10 or 15 grand to another company to do
Are
it.
you allowed to do anything like for the group?
No, I can link to it.
You're not allowed to make a site for it though, but you're allowed to make the group.
Yeah, it's private.
That's interesting.
It's private. That's why you have to be approved to get in. So that makes it a different animal. If it were
Really?
public, it's not public. So that's the key, right?
That's
there.
fascinating. That's a
Public versus
subject
private
for
is
another
a
time.
key
right?
difference in marketing compliance.
No, that makes some sense.
And then my cell, 989-737-4842. That's my personal cell and my business cell. I used to have a business number that was separate. Decided not to do that. But when I text, I have to do it through a hearsay, so you'll get a text back from a different number. Yeah, or show up at my house. Don't do that. My wife and dogs and everybody.
Yeah, it'd be a little uncomfortable.
Get some.
It looks familiar.
Yeah, I got some of my materials here.
Nice looking materials.
Yeah, comprehensive
It's beautiful.
investment
Those might have
solutions.
been the ones you gave
Yeah.
They are. Oh, yeah.
Pictures.
Whole life insurance and asset in your portfolio. That's the boring way of saying infinite banking. New York Life calls it bank on whole life or bowl.
Bank on it.
And I don't like that because it
Clever.
pigeonholes it into whole life. You
Clever
don't have
little
to use-
pun, or a play on bank on, yeah.
But no, man, Chris, we want to thank you again for being a special guest on the Road Podcast, man. Like I said, in this episode 7, and looking forward to continue building that relationship with you, man, and keeping this podcast going. So,
Amen.
Thank you for having me.
Amen.
For sure, man.